That's just stuff. That's the paperwork you've got to sort out. You with me? But you need to get this money thing done. Are you following me so far? Yes or no?
Yes.
Seriously, that little DVD on the wall, did that look like fun to you? Yes or no? That was a circus. We had so much fun. Ladies, think of maybe walking down the streets of Paris with 4 of your girlfriends and the whole trip is on you. It's shopping at a level 10. You with me? Going crazy. It's the same thing, isn't it? And that's what this is about. You just got to make a decision. I am going to make this freaking thing happen, irrespective. Now, I know a lot of people in the room have probably done some seminars before. Raise your hand if you've done that before and it hasn't worked. Raise your hand if you've done a seminar before and you realised you needed capital to do it. Raise your hand. Come on. I need money to do this. You know what? I don't care what it is. Push through it, folks, because time's ticking. You with me? And the rewards are waiting. Let me tell you something real. It is waiting for you, and it's like this endless freaking well. Once you tap into it, you cannot consume that kind of water. Do you follow me? Yes or no? You work out the methodology, you plug into a system like this, you will actually come away so much better off for it. You with me so far? Alrighty. Now, what actually happened was I took my mum for lunch. I dialed my mum up. She'd worked 6 days a week for about 25 years of her life at that point. 6 days a week to support us kids. I dialed her up and I said, Mum, I'm taking you for lunch. She said, great. Picked her up. She actually said to me, she goes, I can't, I'm working. I said, bugger work, I'm going to pick you up. Picked her up from her work, took her to lunch, took the afternoon off. I bought my first Porsche, an Arctic Silver 911. Picked her up a few days later, went to lunch in a little pub on top of the hinterland. And I said to her, Mum, you wouldn't believe what actually happened last week. She said, what's that? I said, I banked $1,066,000. She looked at me. She started to howl. She started to cry. And I said, Mum, you and I are never going to struggle again. Ever. And she'd worked 25 years, 6 days a week to support us kids. And my question to you is this. Does $1,066,000 change the way that you live? Yes or no?
Yes.
She started howling, crying. She goes, I cannot believe it. I said, well, I'm still coming to grips with it myself, you know, sort of adjusting slowly, but it's feeling okay so far, you know. I can get used to it, right? And this is where it all started. So jot down these notes. First and foremost, you and I got to realise there's a couple of basics we'll walk through today, an outline, legalities. I'll go through some tools. Who thinks the internet as their slave would be a very wise tool? You and I use technology today. We don't need a vehicle to drive around, do 4 million kilometres checking out property. That's a thing of the past. Today we use a system called RP data. Who's heard of that before? A property databasing system. Everything that we need is housed in this information centre. It's incredible. Every property transaction since 1930 is stored in there. Every phone contact detail, every person, every owner, how much they bought it for, what the property's about, their phone number for goodness sakes, where they live. I can actually tell you the colour of your tiles on your back patio. Did you know that? Pretty spooky stuff, isn't it? No, it's not Big Brother. It's actually called information, public information, and I'll steer towards that today. Lastly, we'll go through what I call combinations. Combinations are effectively the highest and best use. You and I are in downtown Gold Coast today, GC. A combination would be, let's say that you and I were, let's call it in the back streets here of Broadbeach. You and I come across an old block of flats, let's say three stories. They're old, run down, built in the 70s, quite decrepit. You and I look at the town plan and we work out very quickly that it's actually capable of 5 stories, not 3. Does it make sense so far? And we think to ourselves, well, hang on, it's already got a residential zoning, but across the street, I can actually see some commercial type uses. Who's seen this before? We just spent a whole day on the bus yesterday driving around looking at deals. I'm telling you, there's commercial uses everywhere. But across the street, there's commercial. It might be a travel agency, it might be an IGA or a supermarket of some description, it might be a bakery, butcher, fruit shop. We think to ourselves, well, hang on, if they're using commercial across the street, why can't we adopt the same type of thinking? Wouldn't that be logical, yes or no? And we look back at Broadbeach and we think to ourselves, there's a whole stack of office space in and around Broadbeach. A lot of people work in that central part, don't they? Why couldn't we have 1 floor of retail, 2 floors of office space, and the last 2 floors at the top will keep as residential to uphold the integrity of the town plan? Does that make sense? Do you think it's worth a whole lot more money in that state or just by residential alone? What do you think is worth more? Combination or just residential? Combination, folks, is a higher and better use. This is our Delphin Australand, Walker Corp, Mirvac, all these big companies, corporations think, I want to maximise the uses. I'll share with you a couple of examples this afternoon. Now, let's move forward. Write this down. Well, what is an option? An option is this. It really is a legal document. A solicitor will call that a legal instrument. It's a piece of paper, for goodness sakes. What's that? An option is simply a document. And what that does is it controls the asset. Now, my question to you is this. Think carefully. Is that document worth more than money? Yes or no? Yes. Yes or no? Yes. It actually is, isn't it? And this is what Trump's worked out. This is what Kiyosaki's worked out. That document controls the asset, and I can move it to the market without ever being the owner. And we'll cover off some more detail. Those puppies, those little documents there, are worth about $7,000 to $9,000 a piece. Do you reckon that might be some valuable intellectual property for you? Yes or no? Yes. Well, write this down. The world goes to the decision makers. There'll be 3 of you in the room today that walk away with one of those for free. Is that okay with you? Yes or no? Yes. That was pathetic, people. Come on. I'm going to hand out $21,000 worth of my knowledge. Is that valuable to you? Yes. I'd be one of those people jumping up and saying it's me. Now, what it means is that you and I are going to take control of an asset and flick it to the market. I'll explain more as we go on. What does that mean? Well, as I said before, it's control versus ownership. That is key. Paramount. Today's day and age, when interest rates are starting to march up, when debt is hard to obtain, debt is risky. When you and I have a lot, millions of dollars, we owe the bank money every single month. Do they forget about it, yes or no? No. Somehow they don't, do they? Right? It's painful. It's risky. And I don't know about you, but I don't sleep very well at night when I owe a couple of $1 million. How about you? You see, you and I have been told a bit of a story, I believe. The banks have done some very clever marketing. And you know what? They told us that debt was good. Would you agree, yes or no? Yeah. They said, go borrow, 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 borrow. Fact of the matter is, folks, you're still working harder than you ever have before. Is that right, yes or no? Yes. Hence, there's a link between these two, isn't there? Yes. The more debt you have, the more busy you better get. It's almost like this vacuum, this addiction. And it starts with debt. And this is what's so beautiful about options, is that I don't have to be the owner. I don't have to take on or enroll in that debt. I used to have a lot of real estate, a lot of residential real estate, and I worked out it's a pain in the backside sometimes, isn't it? Coming up with negative cash flow to make ends meet each month. That's a bit stressful, wouldn't you agree? What if you and I just go out and make 130, 140,000 cash, stick it in a bank account? And if the real estate was actually negative $3 or $4 grand a month, can we just take it out of our bank? Yes or no? Yes or no? Yes. I've learnt that cash is what? Cash is what? King. Cash is king. Let's focus on cash. Let's use real estate to pull cash without being the owner of it. Follow me so far? Yes. That's where we're going. Now, how does it work? Well, that's a good question. Firstly, you and I are the referee in the game as opposed to being someone played on the field. Played by who in this case? Who have been played by, folks? Banks. Come on, all of us. Been played by who? Banks. I agree. If you and I have $3.3 million worth of debt in our portfolio or a development or something of that nature, you and I have got to come up with $27,000 a month every single month. Month in, month out. Have you thought that through, yes or no? Have you thought that through? Yes. And yet a lot of people go, man, I can't wait to have 15 properties that are all negative cash flowed, right? 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 I don't know about you folks, I do things very differently today. It's called reverse engineering, starting with the end in mind. Write that down. Entrepreneurs always start with the end in mind. If I want cash, I focus on cash first. Why go out there and do a 25-year plan or a mortgage plan that may not necessarily get me over the line? I might own it, but chances are the bank will for that whole time. Is that correct? Yes or no? Doesn't work for me either. So, let's move on. There's 3 parties involved. Write this down too. There is a seller, clearly. There is a seller, or a property owner as such. There is you and I, the option holder, in the middle. We understand the power of control versus what? Ownership. Control versus? Ownership. Ownership. And then lastly, there's the ultimate buyer. Now, if we look at this in context, you and I are going to add value along the way. How are we going to do that? Well, if we've got a 24-month option, as I detailed here earlier, if I've got a 24-month option, I'm going to use that time to add value to the property. There's two ways of doing it. I can wait for the market to increase. I can use that 2-year period to wait for the market to add value for me. But you know what I've learned? My destiny is still in the hands of the market. You with me? I don't like that. I'm not in control. I'm sitting around waiting. That doesn't work for me at all. But you know what? If I can force value on that thing by the way of a development approval, would that actually add some huge profit to it? Yes or no? Yes. That's the key. It's called adding value to something. Have a look at this. You and I are taking a seedling. We're going to turn that into oranges, and we're going to turn that into orange juice. Have we added immense value? Yes. The seedling might be worth what, 2-3 cents? The orange juice at the other end is probably worth what, $3.50 a litre? Is that right, yes or no?
Yes.
That's thousands of %. And that's the same philosophy we adopt to real estate. Value. Force value through development approval. So why do we need time? We need time to go and talk to a council, don't we? Get an approval, get this thing stamped, flick it to the market. All making sense so far, yes or no?
Yes.
Folks, this is how you go from being a carpenter. If you're curious, this is how you go from being a carpenter at 16 to having over $270 million worth of projects in the pipeline. Do you follow me so far, yes or no?
Yes.
From a chippy, working for $22 an hour and then cleaning windows, to having an asset base of $270 million and growing. That's how you do it. So, this is how you and I are going to structure it. If I could actually find someone that was a volunteer, now that person would probably walk away with the best part of about $7,000 worth of intellectual property. Who do you think that might be? Who would that be? Me. Who would it be, folks? Come on, make yourselves known. Very nice, sir. At the back there. Very nice. Give him a hand. Your name is? Chet.
Yep.
Chet is one. Sir, you're number 2. Give him a round of applause, folks. Come on. Chet. I need one more. Ladies, let's mix it up. Who is it? Ladies, who is it? Yes, ma'am. Very nice. You're first on your feet. Let's go. Next time. You now are, sir, Simon.
Yes.
Chet, you're going to be the seller. And your name, my dear? Kylie. Good to meet you, Kylie. Mark Rolton. You'll be the option holder. Now you stand in the middle. Chet, if you can for me. Simon, move to your right. Now, folks, watch very carefully here. Have we all heard something about property options? Raise your hand, yes or no? Heard the concept, but I haven't actually really understood what actually happens here. Watch the simplicity. Your job here is to isolate the risk. Do you follow me so far? Is there risk if we actually buy and hold property? There is an element of risk there. But I want you to focus on the risk and you tell me where it is at any point in time. Chet, to the left if you wouldn't mind, please, mate. Great. Now, we've learned that time is more important than what?
Money.
No, folks. This is 21st century. Time is more important than what? Money. So, our friend Melissa comes along, Kylie comes along and says, you know what, Chet, I want to take on that property. Chet is a seller. If you can just stand over there for me, mate, face us. Now, Chet is the owner of the property. And Kylie says, well, listen, I've got an option. I don't want to own it. I just want to, I want to what? I want to control it. So Kylie, if you would, please hand over the option as well as the cheque for $1,000. Now, Kylie also has a signed agreement of Chet's property. They've agreed to option it. Fair enough, yes or no?
Yes.
Who controls Chet's property? Who?
Kylie.
How much did it cost? Now, Kylie goes to the council and says, well, listen, there's clearly a higher and better use. I'm going to get a development approval and I want to flick it onto the market without ever being the what? Owner. Without ever being the owner. Kylie turns around and says, well, that's actually worth something. That's worth a lot of money in the marketplace. Is that right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Now, we have our friend here, Simon. Simon is a builder. Simon is a developer. Developers are good at what?
Developing.
Developers are good at what?
Developing.
Builders are good at what?
Building.
Painters are good at what?
Painting.
They want to do what their best skills provide them to do. They are essentially a developer. And you and I realise that all these people want is a turnkey solution. They don't want to go sit there with councils and talk to them and talk to consultants and engineers and stuff. They just want to do what they do best. This is the person that pours concrete, lays bricks for a living, hangs gyprock for a living. They're the ones that basically put together a project, develop it. But you and I can make a lot of money in the meantime. Is that right? Yes or no?
Yes.
So, as an ultimate buyer or as a builder developer, Simon turns around and says, I want to take on that project. I like it. It's got a development approval and I can start immediately. Is that right? Yes. Simon, hand over a check to Kylie. Kylie, hand over the option if you would, please. Now, what was Kylie's exposure through the process? $1,000. Come on, folks, what is it? $1,000. Kylie, hand up. Throw up that check for me. Is that a tidy profit, yes or no?
Yes.
And this is what I've learned, that our ultimate buyers, builders, developers, they just want a turnkey solution, people. That's all they care about. Because is development a fairly profitable enterprise, yes or no?
Yes.
Not without risk, but it is very profitable, right? And now, who is about to take on the risk of this transaction? Who would it be?
Simon.
Because someone has to pay the owner the amount of money at the end of the day. Is that right, yes or no?
Yes.
So Simon, if you would, please hand over the cheque to Chet. Hand over the option as well, Chet, in exchange. Question, who owns the property now?
Simon.
Did Simon take on the risk, yes or no?
Yes.
Now, in between all of this, Kylie made how much? 700 grand. Are you with me, yes or no?
Yes.
How much did it cost Kylie to get that 700?
69.
It cost $1,000. It cost $1,000. Folks, that's our core business. That's what we do today. Is that a smart business, yes or no?
Yes.
And people look at it and go, it's got to be more difficult than that. You know what I've learned? You need some skills around how to work out who the most important party is. Who do you think's the most significant part in this transaction?
Kylie.
Who would it be?
Kylie.
She's the one making the dough, right? And what was her risk? Would you like to know the rest of the story, yes or no?
Yes.
The $1,000, if we don't for some reason proceed, if the council says no, we're not going to stamp that approval. If the council says you can't do that, if the project no longer works, if the market tanks and goes sideways, we rip up the option, walk away and ask for our $1,000 back. It's fully refundable. Are you with me, yes or no?
Yes. Yeah.
So now what's her risk? What's her risk? Zero. Give them a huge round of applause, folks. Very nice. Keep one of those, Simon. Keep one of those, Kylie. And also one for you too, Chet. Very, very nice. Folks, that is the core. That is the very essence of options. That's how the process works. Now, some of you are probably sitting there saying, well, hang on. Jesus, you just did my head in. You just bent my whole brain, right? But the principle is really quite simple. You've learnt that time is more important than money. Is that right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Here's a live transaction. Write this down. It was optioned. The market was actually $800,000. Write this down. It was optioned at 1 million. Market 800. Option 1 million. With a development approval in place, it was sold for 1.7, which left $700,000 profit. So now, if we go to a seller and we say, listen, I'm not here to insult your intelligence, Mr. Seller. I've learnt that time is worth more than what?
Money.
So instead of trying to crunch you down on price and negotiate, and smash you down on price, I'm willing to offer you more in exchange for... I'm actually willing to offer you more money in exchange for what? Time. 24 months. My core business is adding value to real estate. You got me?
Yeah.
That's the whole principle. That's how you and I approach it. Don't do it with a traditional method and say, the property's worth 700 grand, 800 grand, I'll offer you 550. You with me? That's traditional thinking. As entrepreneurs, let's offer them more in exchange for time. Let's add value to that thing and keep the profit in between. Making sense so far?
Yes.
Let's finish off that loop. Option holder, lastly, ultimate buyer, as we said. Now, does it have to be complicated? Not at all. Here is a very simple transaction. Same concept, I just want to control it and then flick it onto the market. I don't necessarily want to be the owner. I want to make cash out of real estate first. If I now want to go and buy property, I've got the cash to do it. Does it make sense? Yep. If we make $800,000 or 300 grand or $120,000 out of a transaction, you and I can go buy a profit with cash or part thereof, can't we? Is that right?
Yes.
I'd much prefer to do that. What happens when you lob up to the bank and you say, listen, the property is in fact worth 350. Here's 200,000 cash. I need to borrow 150 grand. Is that okay? Yes or no?
Yes.
I'm not borrowing 85, 95%. I'm probably borrowing less than half. Does it matter what interest rates do after that point? Yes or no? It's irrelevant. Does it matter if it's actually empty? The tenants aren't there for 4 weeks. Is it going to send you to the wall? Yes or no? Does it send you bankrupt? Not at all. Let's use real estate to pull large chunks of cash, and then let's go and buy some and keep it for long term. Follow so far? Yes. Here's a terrific example. Here's a deal done by a graduate only recently. You can see their house on there on the left-hand side. There's a vacant area on the right-hand side that was part of the property. So, as you can probably tell, he optioned it. He optioned the whole lot, in fact. He actually put the deal together for not $500,000. You told me that time was worth more than what? Money. The market was $500,000. So would we offer them more than the market or less? More. Definitely more. So he put the deal together at $530,000. That would make logical sense. Wouldn't you agree? Yes. Is the seller a happy seller at this point in time? Yes. No-brainer. Absolute no-brainer. Then he sold the house on the original block, little small block now, subdivided for $395,000. He then sold the vacant block of land right next door for $240,000, just the block, 586 square metres next door. That gave him a gross realisation of $635. But someone has to pay the seller $530. Is that right? Yes or no? Yes. Correct. Less $530,000 left him with $105,000 gross profit. We still have some expenses. Is that right? We've still got to get development approval through council. Correct? Yes. We've still got to pay some infrastructure charges for the sewer and the water. Fair enough. So, less his cost, $16,830. But poor Kevin didn't have any cash, right? Kevin actually went out and got 2 credit cards for the $16,830. Does that make sense? He had zero money. Poor guy was an IT consultant. No cash. Not being disrespectful, but he had no money at all, right? He went and got 2 credit cards to make this deal happen. And guess what? The commission that we owe to the agents, we're going to involve some real estate agents to sell the properties to the market. Is that fair enough? Yes. But we don't own them, so we're not liable for any debt yet, are we? Are we? No. There's no debt here. We're not going to the bank for a loan, nothing of the description. $15,875. But what's cool about that is the commission is due and payable when the property's settled. Does that make sense? So we actually have our profit to pay out the commission. Everyone with me so far, yes or no? Yes. Fantastic. That left Kevin with $72,295. Is that a good deal, yes or no? Yes. He had none of his own cash in there. He walked away with